For recording purposes, today is trigonometry. Great. So here we start in the story here. So you all can give it a read. We're still waiting on a lot of people, so we can kill a little 1 minute here. So this is the aftermath of the three little pigs, right? You all know what happened and whatnot. The house got blew down and whatnot. So apparently they all went to live by the third little pig. And well, the third little pig is their brother, but yeah, he's not the nicest brother in the world. Y'all can read the storyline. Okay. So in one of these items here is either the sand pit, the dirt pit, or the grave. There is some money. So either choose the sand pit, the dirt pile, or the grave, and one of them would have some money to lend these two little pigs. By the two little pigs, I mean the ones that, built their house out of straw and sticks. choose, guys, choose while we wait on everyone. Correct one here. All right, so according to this, the sand pile was the correct one. The grave and the dirt pile had nothing. So for those who chose the sand pile, put 2 points down. Let's see who has the most points at the end of class today. So we're going to start off with something that you all already know from last week. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, right? We all know there are two ways to measure angles, well, at least for the CXC syllabus. It's either you're going to be using radians or degrees. And last week I gave you a formula to convert degrees to radians or radians back to what? Degrees. However, there are some popular angles out there that I want you all to memorize. A lot of the time in the exam, right? A lot of times in the exam, whenever the examiner is giving you the angle in radians, they will express it in terms of pi. And like I said, some of them are very, very popular values that I need you to learn off by heart. For example, where 0 degrees is the same thing as 0 radians. 30 degrees is the same thing as pi on 6. Pi on 4 in radians is the same thing as 45 degrees. And you all get the pattern. I don't want to read off everything off the table, right? But in the exam, if you see something like pi is the same thing as 180 degrees and whatnot. I need for you all to take down this table quickly for me, right? And don't worry, I don't expect you to memorize the table right now. Today in class, I will remind you of the relationship. Like if I put pi on 3, I will remind you that, pi on 3 is the same thing as 60 degrees. Also, I don't want you all to switch your phones, I mean your calculators, to radians mode. I want you to keep your calculator on regular, boring degrees mode. So make sure at the top of your calculator on the screen, like if this is the screen here, at the top of the screen, make sure you're seeing the letter D or DEG. If you're seeing R or RAD, try to fix it. You can reset your calculator. And if you're seeing G or GRAD, your calculator is on the wrong mode as well. Right? So let me know when you're finished taking down the table and we will move to. Right. So remember in maths, right? When you throw something across the equal sign, you always get the opposite. So the opposite of cosine, right? But I hope by now everyone knows the opposite of cos and cosine, sine, and tan, right? And how to access it on your calculator. So I just want to see what everyone will do here, right? Just a quick question. Let's say this question came in the exam and they asked you to solve for theta. Remember, theta is the angle. What you would normally do is take the cosine and throw it across. And when you throw across cosine, the opposite of cosine is cosine inverse 0.76. Now, I just want to make sure you all can type in this on your calculator. Remember, cosine and cosine inverse are opposites, just like how positive is the opposite of negative. On most calculators, you will see a cosine button, and above the cosine button, written will be cosine minus 1. To access the cosine minus 1, you have to either press the second function button first or the shift button first. So you press second function cosine or shift cosine, and cosine minus 1 will appear on your calculator. And when you're typing cosine, the inverse of cosine, type in 0.76 and send the answer for me. What angle do you get when you press when you type in cosine 0.76 on your calculator? I am getting this 40.54 degrees if you go to 2 decimal places properly. Remember, if the 3rd decimal place is 5 or more, you have to add 1. Now, if this was a regular boring maths question, this would be the end of the question if they ask you to solve for the angle. But in maths, whenever you solve for an angle, you normally do not get one answer. In 99% of the cases, you're at least going to get 2 answers. So some of you are probably wondering, but what second answers are talking about? My calculator only showed me one answer, and that one answer was 40.54. So I'm going to show you how to get the second answer. To get the second answer, you have to memorize this little chart here. I know this isn't going to make too much sense for a lot of people who are very new to this topic, right? But do me a favor. Take down everything that I am circling here, and I will explain it properly. I promise you, right? I will explain it properly. Let me know when you're finished with that, and you're not required to understand it right now. So, all these trigonometry questions are either going to boil down to positive types of questions or negative types of questions. The positive types of questions are going to be super easy. That's the easy question. But how do you know whether it's a positive question or a negative type of question? When we are solving for the angle, at the point of throwing across the trig function, the trig function is either the sine, the tan, or the cosine. In this case here, the trig function is cosine today. At the point in the question, when you are throwing across the trig function, look at the number on the other side of the equal sign. Today's number is 0.76. When you throw in across the sine, tan, or cosine, ask yourself, is the number waiting on the other side positive or negative? Today's number is positive. So this is one of the easy questions. So today's first question is a positive type of question. So it's a cosine question and it's positive. You will notice that this chart, right, has 4 sections. You just call them quadrants, as in quarters. Quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. You just read it anti-clockwise. In the first quadrant, quadrant 1, everybody is positive. That means I'm just letting you know, right? Just to make things a little bit easier on me, right? For cosine, I will just use the letter C, right? For sine, I will use the letter S, and for tan, I'll obviously use the letter T. In quadrant 1, everybody is positive. So that means cosine is positive, sine is positive, and tan is positive by default. In the second quadrant, the only person who is positive is sine, which means that if only sine could be positive in this quadrant, it It means that cosine is negative and tan is negative in the second quadrant. In the third quadrant, the only person who is positive is tan. I write it in here, which means that cosine is negative in this area and sine is negative. And obviously in the fourth quadrant, cosine is positive, which means tan is negative and sine is negative. And you notice each quadrant has a formula associated with it. This is the formula associated with quadrant 2. This is the formula associated with quadrant 3. And this is the formula associated with quadrant 4. In the first quadrant is just alpha. Alpha is what you call your basic angle. And you always get your basic angle when you throw across the sine, tan, or cosine. So like I said, our first answer today, I'll call it theta 1, is 40.54. To get our second answer, we have to go to the chart and say two things. It's a cosine question and it's a positive question. We all know in section 1, quadrant 1, cosine is positive. In fact, everybody is positive. But in which other quadrant is cosine positive? We all know in quadrant 1, cosine is positive. My question to you is, in which other quadrant is cosine allowed to be positive? It's the fourth quadrant, right? Everyone is shouting it out, right? Because it's written clear, right? Cosine is positive in the fourth quadrant. What's the formula in the fourth quadrant? 360 minus alpha. Alpha is the first answer you get. So alpha is 40.54. So could you all get the second answer for me? To get the second answer, you just say 360 minus 40.54. Literally, that's all you have to do to get the second answer. 360 minus 40.54. Send the answer on the chat and we're finished with the question. And I'm seeing this on my calculator, 319.46 degrees. I know some of you are still, you're not 100% on it, right? You probably just need a smaller, how you say, another question to practice on, right? Once you memorize the chart here, it's going to be super easy, right? So let me change up this question a little bit for you guys. I don't want to change it up too much as we brand new to this, right? Right. So instead of saying cosine theta, let's say I just change up the question to this now, right? Let me just change it up a little bit. Instead of cosine, let's change it to a regular boring sine question. So I come and tell you sine theta. Let me change this value too. I think we should be fair. Just change it up enough, right? Let's still keep it a positive type of question. So let's say sine theta is equal to 0.85. Let's solve for the angle and get our two answers. Let's do that. Let's solve for our two answers here. So the question starts up, and the first thing we have to do is only one thing we could throw across in this question, right? Because there's only sine theta. We want to get rid of the sine. So unfortunately, the only person to throw across is the sine, right? So when you throw across the sine, he's going to go on the other side. The opposite of sine is sine inverse. Now, at the point of throwing across the sine, what was waiting on the other side? A positive number. So this question is a sine question, and it's a positive type of question. The positive types of question is equal, is easy. Could you all get the first answer for me? You just have to type in sine inverse 0.85. That's all you have to do. Type in sine inverse 0.85 on your calculator, and you get your first answer, better known as your basic angle, right? your basic angle. Second function sine 0.85. I'm getting this. A lot of people are getting it also. 58.21 degrees. Time to get our second answer. Theta 2. Where else? Remember, this is a sine and positive question. Sine is obviously positive in the first quadrant. Everybody is positive in the first quadrant. But in which other quadrant is sine allowed to be positive? Look at it good. Look at it good. No, Scott. Oh, this up. Scott, in quadrant 1, it's understood everybody is positive. That's a given. The question is, where else is sine allowed to be positive? That's the question, right? No one should be saying, well, in quadrant 1, sine is positive, because that's obvious, right? That's like saying water is wet, right? So the question is again, right? Where else is sine allowed to be positive? And the answer for that is quadrant 2. Look at it written here, right? Right, Tahira, you have to check your calculator settings, reset your calculator, and make sure it's in degrees mode. Your calculator is on the wrong mode. Make sure you're seeing the letter D or DEG to the top of your screen, right? So what we need to do now, since sine is allowed to be positive in the second quadrant, we just established this. What's the formula we have to use? This formula, right? So you just have to type in 180 minus the first answer we got. You call the first answer the basic answer. The first answer is the basic angle. So type in 180 minus 58.21. 180 minus 58.21. And I'm seeing this 121.79 degrees. Right. Oh, look at this. We have well, it looks so far like this question would be a negative type of question. So take down this question. Tan theta is equal to minus 0.45. And our aim is to solve for theta. And we're supposed to get what? 2 answers. We only have one thing to throw across in this question, right? Guys, don't rush the question. Do not rush. Some of you are going ahead and doing the question, and I know you're going to end up doing the complete wrong thing. So please wait on me, okay? Great. So in this question, we have no choice but to throw across tan. So when we throw in across tan, at the point of throwing across the tan, what is waiting on the other side? What is waiting on the other side? A blatant negative value. Okay? So, to describe this question, this is a tan question, and it is what? A negative type of question. So that is how I would describe that question. Now, when it's a negative type of question, like when you're sure it's a negative type of question, you all see the little note at the bottom of the screen there? I don't know if you all realize that the note has changed, right? Well, I'm hoping so. At the point of throwing across the sine, tan, or cosine, if the number is negative, temporarily, keyword, temporarily ignore the negative sign, right? So we and keyword is temporarily. So this is what you're going to see for the time being. When you throw across tan, you're ignoring the negative sign. That this is how you deal with negative question. So everyone find tan inverse of normal positive 0.45. It's actually being, pretend you're being rude. A negative sign comes up to you and you just stoops and ignore it like it's not there. Okay? So tan inverse positive 0.45. Just do that for me. Dealing with the negatives are a little bit tricky. Right. Kemi, you have an answer, right? I'm not doubting you all. I'm gonna make sure, right? I think some of you are wrong enough. That's the rest. But second function, tan 0.45. I'm getting this 24.23 degrees. Remember, I'm a fan of rounding off properly. And the examiner is not going to be too kind to you when you round off to 2 decimal places not properly. You're gonna come out that exam thinking you get a 1, and because of that little rounding off problem, you're gonna lose a mark here, 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 and it's gonna add up, and you're not going to get the 1. Okay? Great. Now, you see this answer, he is not the final answer, right? But he is still what? The first answer you get is always the basic angle. So once again, when it's a negative value, you ignore the negative sign, right? And then you do what? You proceed as normal. And the first answer you get is the basic angle. Now ask yourself, remember, this is a tan and it's a negative question. Which two quadrants is tan negative? Which two quadrants is tan negative? Remember, I didn't say it, it's not written specifically or directly in my diagram. But if I come and tell you in quadrant 2, sine is positive, then by default, that means tan is negative and cosine is negative. The other two is negative now. In quadrant 3, tan is positive. We don't care about quadrant 3. We care about negative tan. In quadrant 4, if cosine is positive, doesn't that mean tan is negative and sine is negative? So to suit the description of our question, which is a tan and negative question, we using the formula in quadrant 2 and we using the formula in what? Quadrant 4. And by the way, alpha is the basic angle. So get your two answers now, right? Get your two answers. Say 180 minus 24.23 and 360 minus 24.23. You can find any one first, and the examiner won't care which one you find first. He doesn't care. Just get both of them, right? So you see how we temporarily ignore the negative sign? We ignore the negative sign to get the basic angle. But after we get the basic angle, we remind ourselves this is really a negative question. So we have to go where tan is negative. (180) minus 24.23, we get in 24.23 degrees. That's all. That's correct. That's all. 180 minus 24.23. Oh, my mistake, my mistake. From quadrant 2, I'm getting 155.77 degrees. And on the fourth quadrant, 360 minus 24.23, right? It's 335.77 degrees. Those are my two answers. Ah, a little cut scene here, right? So one day, the first two pigs, remember the third pig, the one with the brick house, is being like a real bad person to his two brothers. So the drifter tells them he knows where the big bad wolf is, or he can contact them. All right. So guys, choose a piece of paper. The brown paper or the white paper. Which one do you think will have the choose one and you'll get the number to contact the big bad wolf. I guess in these two pigs here have a little plan for their older brother. Okay. Oh yeah, well, you all notice that some of the middle pig have what? 6 legs, right? Remember, this everything here is AI generated, right? But the AI generation technology is new now. So sometimes you're using it and you're describing what you want, and you don't get exactly what you want now. You get these mutant stuff. Anyway, all right, let's see which piece of paper has the correct number. Oh no, it's the white one, guys. The wrong one is just my number. Sorry, guys. The white paper is BB Wolf, well, Big Bad Wolf, obviously. Right? 665 Wolf is his number. Congratulations to those who picked the white one. All right. So don't let fractions get to you. But I want to make this question a little bit harder. I don't want, oops. I don't want this one to be a positive one. The negative one is a little bit harder. So let's change this question to sine theta is equal to minus 1/3, right? Right. I know some of you are just going to round off the 1/3 to what? 0.33. You don't already have to do that, but if you want to, actually, no, I don't really advise that. Let's use, everyone here can use the fractions button on your calculator. I'm hoping, right? Is the A/BC button. Right. So let's get started. So we want to solve for theta. So you take the sine and you throw it across. Now, when you're throwing across the sine, what is waiting on this side? A negative number. Number minus 1/3 is what? Negative. But, so this is a sine question and it's a negative type of question. That's how you would describe this question. What do we do when it's a negative question? The note, once again, is at the bottom right-hand side of the screen, okay? You temporarily ignore the negative sign. So this is what you want to do. When you throw across the sign, you're going to get sine inverse, and you forget that negative sign. So you find sine inverse 1/3. Now, in case you cannot type in 1/3, like you can't use the fraction button, it's real easy to bypass it. You can write it like this. You press second function sine, so you put sine inverse. Use your open and close brackets. Put open brackets, 1 divided by 3, close brackets. That's the same thing as 1/3. Let me know what you get for your basic angle. The sine inverse of positive 1/3, because we temporarily ignoring the negative sign. Right, answers are coming up fast. I'm getting 19.47 degrees. Now, remember, we were ignoring the negative sign. So this is just our basic angle, but better known as the alpha in this diagram here. But reality comes back to us. We can't ignore the fact that this is a negative question. In which two quadrants is sine negative because it's really a sine question and it's really a negative question. Which two quadrants is sine negative? Bartholomew, correct. Kemi, correct. Christina, correct. Jared, correct. Tahira, correct. So, but Javon is just well, okay, Javon, you say cosine. Okay, you gotta just call numbers, right? Quadrant 3 or quadrant 4. That's what I meant. But you're correct, I do it. So you're using the formula in quadrant 3 and quadrant 4 because in quadrant 3 and 4, sine is negative. So get your two answers now. Your two answers will be theta 1 and theta 2. Say 180 plus the basic angle and then 360 minus the basic angle. Correct answer. First correct answer is 199.47. Make sure you put your little degrees there. Then 360 minus 19.47 is what? 340.53 degrees. 5 there. Those are your two final answers, theta 1 and theta 2. Take a 20 seconds, take down what you need to take down, and we're going to move to some harder questions. All right, so you all try this one now. It's another negative one. It's a cosine question. Good luck. Let's see if you can get both answers without my help. Let's see. So we only have one choice, one thing to throw across in this question. It's not like it have much things in this question. So when you throw across the cosine, you get what? Cos inverse. Okay? So but wow, look at this. When we throw it across, we realize it's negative 2/5 weighting. We should ignore that negative sign, right? So cos inverse, and it's just what? 2/5. Now I'm gonna type it in for those like on my calculator like this, right? For those who could use the fraction buttons, but fine, no problem. So I'm ignoring the negative sign. So cos inverse 0.4 or 2/5, I'm getting 66.42. But remember, in reality, this is a cosine and it's a negative question. But I still need to find my basic angle because my basic angle could be useful. So now I have to ask myself, hey, where is cosine negative? And that will be which two regions? The second and third. Correct, because it can't be region 1 because everybody positive in region 1. And well, region 4 is made for cosine to be positive. So let's use this formula and this formula. So it's 180 minus the 66.42, and the other one is 180 plus the 66.42. Right. So it's 180 minus 66.42, which is 113.58, and 180 plus 66.42, which is 246.42 degrees. Look for your mistakes. But I don't think I saw only one person had a wrong answer. So you could just let me know if you saw your mistake. Now, just to make sure we have no misunderstandings, right? This basic angle, the 66.42, is not one of the final answers. Well, when it's negative, the basic angle will not be an answer. You just use it to get the other two answers. All right. So let's get ready to move on to the next question. All right. Ah, well, let's see what's going on here. What drama takes place here. Soon well, that's always be wolf. Soon the wolf turned up, not world, to eat the third little pig. All right. And you all see the reasons there and whatnot. All right. It seems that the pig needs to pass maths to get a promotion at the bacon factory there. All right, so the wolf has a generous heart. I want you all to guess a number from 1 to 9, 1 and 9 inclusive. And if you're correct, we save the third little pig's life. So to save it, guess a number between 1 and 9. And let's see if you get lucky. Yeah, the bacon factory. Come guys, send your numbers, send your numbers. Somebody said 3, one person said 7, another person said 6. One of the pigs missing a tail. Where? Well, probably not missing a tail, it's probably just the angle. All right, let's see what the lucky number is, right? The lucky number is 6, and if you guessed 6, you get 5 points. Javon, you got your 5 points, and no one else got it. Despite the little mistakes in the AI, I think it does a pretty cool job. So, all right, let's move on. All right, now look at this question. Everyone take down this question. And this is where the examiner will start to kind of trick you. It being a positive or negative question in the previous slides are not really trick questions. Those are standard questions. Now, this question, at first glance, it's obviously a sine question, obviously, because you're seeing sine theta, right? What kind of question is it? Is it a positive type of question or a negative type of question? At first, for you to figure out if it's a positive or negative question, you just can't simply look on the other side of the equal sign. I know on the other side of the equal sign, you're seeing positive 0.85. You're only allowed to decide if it's positive or negative only when it's time to throw across the sine, tan, or cosine. This question is a little bit different because we have a -2 here. And remember, the aim of the question is still to solve for what? Theta. Now, between the -2 and the sine, there's a secret multiply. Now, if we're trying to solve for theta, and the first person we have to throw across is the -2, the -2 is a multiply. When you throw across a multiply, you get what? A divide by, well, in this case, they're dividing by -2. Remember, when you throw across a multiply, you do indeed get a divide, but the sign does not change. So you see what's going to happen here now. You're ending up dividing 0.85 by -2. When you divide a positive by a negative, don't you get a negative? So let's divide 0.85 by -2. I'm not going to round off here, right? I'm getting a really nice number and I'm feeling real hard to round off. So 0.425. I know some of y'all might be tempted to round it off to 0.43, but this is such a nice number. Now. Let's keep all the decimals. All right. No, remember, no, it's time to throw across the sign because we have nobody else but the sign to throw across. So when we take the sign and we throw it across, ask yourself, now is the time to ask yourself what sort of question this is. at the point of throwing across the sign, it turned out to be what type of question? A negative question. So don't jump the gun too fast when you're deciding whether it's a positive or a negative question. You think you all can finish out the question from here now, knowing that it is what a negative, temporarily ignore the negative, and then ask yourself, hey, where is sign negative? And use all three decimal places now, the 42 and the 5. Right? So we all get the same answer. But the same answers coming up. So when I throw across the sign, I'm going to get sign inverse, ignore the negative sign. So I'll be able to get my basic angle at least. Second function sine 0.425. I'm getting roughly 25.15. Now this is my basic angle, right? Also known as alpha, right? A lot of textbooks would just call it alpha. So now it's really a negative question. We can't ignore the fact that it's a negative question forever. So where's it? Where's sign negative? In the third and fourth quadrant. Use this formula and this formula, the two that I underline. So theta 1 and theta 2. 180 plus the 25.15. 180 plus 25.15 is 2. Kemi, something went wrong there. You used the wrong quadrant. Sign is negative in the third and fourth. Your first answer is 205.15 degrees. Now use the 1 in the fourth quadrant. 360 minus 25.15. 334.85 degrees. Look for your errors, I even underlined which formulas you need to use, and I circled the quadrants that we need to use as well. Oh, somebody want me to? Oh no, the trouble has started. It looks a little bit more difficult. Take down this question. Remember, you can only determine if it's a positive or negative question when it's time to throw across the sine, the tan, or the cosine. How much of y'all want a shot at this? Take a 5 minutes. Take a shot. I'll give you one hint, right? Let's just discuss it quickly. Who do you have to throw across first? The 1.2 or the -3? Who you throwing across first? The 1.2. All right. So, and then you throw across the -3, right? So I'll give you this a little jump start. You're throwing across this first, and the -3, who is really a multiply, is second. So that's the only jump start I'm giving you all. All right, so we said the first person we throw across is the positive 1.2. Throw him across, he becomes negative 1.2. All right, so let's handle that part. -3 tan theta 0.85 minus 1.2. For the time being, it's minus 0.35, but it's too early to decide still if this is a positive or negative question. Next on the list is what? Mr. -3, who is a secret multiply. Throw across a multiply, you get a divide. Remember, when you throw across a multiply, once again, I agree we get a divide, but the sign does not change. So it remains -3. Well, when we divide 2 minus, we're going to get a positive. 0.35 divided by 3. Well, I'm getting positive 0.12. That looking correct so far, guys? Because they get 0.166666666. So if you round it off, you get 0.12. But more so, positive 0.12. So we end up with a positive question because the only person to throw across now is Mr. Tan. So the best way to describe this question now, it's a tan question, and it's positive. Before you even know tan is positive in which region? The first region, because everybody positive in the first region, and the third region. This one here, whenever something is in the first region, the basic angle is actually one of the answers. Because in other words, the formula for region 1 is alpha. So the basic angle will be an answer. So theta 1, your first answer is going to be tan inverse 0.12. The basic angle is going to be one of the answers. Second function, tan 0.12. I'm getting 6.84 degrees. To get theta 2, we use the formula in the third region because tan is positive in the third region. So it's 180 plus 6.84. 180 plus 6.84 is, I don't even know why I used my calculator for that. I could have done that in my head. These are my two final answers. I'm underlining it in blue. All right, check for your mistakes, check for your mistakes. A lot of people got my answers, so good, good, good. Right, Durga, you saw your mistake, right? You used the wrong regions. You went in the negative regions, right? Durga, you'll let me know if you see a mistake. Ah. All right, so it turns out even though we guessed the correct number, the wolf did not keep his word. All right. Y'all can read what's going on there. All right. All right, so it turns out the wolf promised to be vegetarian for his girlfriend. So we need to get a message to her so she could come and stop this I don't know what you call this, an assassination attempt here. All right, so who are we going to trust to deliver that message to the wolf's girlfriend? The bat or the mongoose? Who do you think will be better at delivering that messages and saving his life? Bat, the mongoose. Class is divided. All right, let's see who's the correct choice here. Well, apparently the girlfriend's name is Susie, so we're trying to get a message to Susie. All right, so the correct choice here was the bat, because apparently the mongoose didn't like the pig anyway. All right, so for those who guessed the bat, you have 5 points there. Good luck. Oh, by the way, right, I just want to point out one thing about trigonometry and how to expand brackets. Remember, if I have, let's say, x, and afterwards I had brackets. Let me say I had 10 minus, let me just call it 3y. We all know it's possible to multiply everybody in the brackets by x. So that's a normal thing, right? X by 10 is what? 10x, and x by 3y is 3yx. We are so accustomed expanding or multiplying our brackets, we think it can work for anything. With trigonometry, it's different. When the brackets come after the word cosine, don't ever think for a second that you can multiply everyone in the brackets by cosine. Some people would be tempted to do this. They will say cosine by theta is cos theta, and cosine by pi on 2 is cosine pi on 2. This is the most wrongistic thing in the world, okay? You cannot expand trigonometry like that. Trigonometry, when it comes to brackets, it doesn't follow the normal rules. So please make a mental note of that. The only way to get rid of these brackets is to throw across the cosine. You can think of the cosine as holding two of them as hostage. So in a question like this, the first thing we have to do is throw across the cosine. Now, when we are throwing across the cosine, right? What are we landing on? Isn't it a positive value? So remember, this is a cosine question. And at the point of throwing across the cosine, because we have no choice but to throw across the cosine first, we realize it was a positive question. Don't pay attention to the brackets as yet. You throw across the cosine, and anytime you throw across a sine, tan, or cosine, pause the question and get your two answers. So everyone quickly, get your two answers for me. Forget about that pi on 2 in the brackets. We will handle that at the end of the question. So just to summarize what I'm trying to say is, as soon as you throw across the sine, tan, or cosine, get your two answers. Forget about everything else in the question. Just pause the question and get your two answers. Good luck. So so far we have well, when we throw across the cosine, we're left with what? Theta plus pi on 2, and we have cosine inverse 0.85. This will give us our basic angle, so let's see what we get. Second function, cosine 0.85. So the two answers we get in from this is 31.79. Remember, it's a positive question, right? So cosine is positive in region 1, whose first answer is the basic angle, and cosine is also positive in the fourth region. So we have to say 360 minus the 31.75. So our second answer is 360 minus how much? 31.79. I said 5 by mistake, but it's 9 I meant. 328.21. Now we're not finished with the question. Remember, the aim of the question is to solve for theta. Anybody remembers pi on 2? You notice the examiner gave us pi on 2, but they're already supposed to put only angles belong in this bracket. When you cosine something, or tan something, or sine something, it's an angle. But you notice they gave you the angle in radians. Go back to your table. Pi on 2 is really how much degrees? How much degrees is really pi on 2? Right, 90 degrees. So you could throw away that pi on 2 and replace it with something you're more accustomed seeing. I do like radians. I didn't grow up with radians. When somebody asks me, well, what's the angle in that triangle, like a right angle triangle, I grew up saying 90 degrees. I would have never said pi on 2, right? I would have never done that. So this is what we have so far. Let me change the color. Pi plus 90 degrees is equal to 31.79, and also theta plus 90 is also equal to 328.21 degrees. Call this theta 1 and call this theta 2. You think you can solve for theta 1? In both cases, just throw across the positive 90 to get minus 90. Because we only care about theta. We don't care about the 90. Get the 90s on the other side, and we're finished. That will be the end of the question. So what's the answer for theta 1, and what's the final answer for theta 2? Just throw him across, throw him across. You get minus 90 in both cases. It's okay to get negative answers. Nothing is wrong with a negative angle. I know most people here are not accustomed with a negative angle, but negative angles is a real thing in maths. Send your final two answers there. 31.79 minus 90 is minus 58.21 degrees. That's my first answer for theta. My next one is 328.21 minus 90. 238.21 degrees. Right? That is circling my final, but underlining it in red. That's my final answers. All right. So before I do this one, right, I want to try one more question. I think we should have done one more. Let's go back. Let's go back here a little bit. I want you all to try one more question on this now. I don't want to, the next question is a really hard question. And I think some of you all could use some more practice on this particular one, right? So let's just change this up a little bit. We could probably make this one pi on 3. I can change this one up. What you all want here? A sine. Right, I'll put pi on 3 is negative 0.25. Good luck with this question, right? All right. Oh, one more thing. Let's change one more thing. Not to make it hard or anything, but I don't want it to be too similar to the first question. Try this one. Solve for theta. Remember, the first person you have to throw across there is the sign. You don't have a choice. You can't expand those brackets. You cannot. Because when you're throwing across that sign, and the only choice you have right now is to throw across the sign, who is waiting here? A negative. So to me, this is a sign question, and it is negative. But when it's a negative, you temporarily ignore the negative. So you ready? When it go on the other side, right? It's technically sign inverse. Positive 0.25. This will give us what? I get in this for the basic angle, 14.48 degrees. We could all agree with that? But remember, the basic angle here, the basic angle is not actually one of the final answers because it's really what? A negative question. So where's sign negative? In the third region and the fourth region, right? So my advice is to get your two answers first. The one for the third region and one for the fourth region. Right? You have to pause your question and get your two answers and then move on. All right. So 180 plus the 14.48, right? So 180 plus the 14.48. My first kind of like answer is 194.48 degrees. And the other one, 360 minus 14.48 is how much? 345.52. Everybody with me so far? Right. But the question is not finished because it's theta minus pi on 3. Remember, pi on 3, if you look back in your table, is 60 degrees. So this is what you have to finish off now. Theta minus 60 degrees is equal to 194.48. And at the same time, theta 2 minus 60 degrees is also equal to 345.52 degrees. This is equal to two things at the same time, right? It's like a simultaneous existence. They exist simultaneously at the same time. Quickly finish out the question. To solve for theta 1, you just throw across the minus 60 to get positive 60, and you redo it here again. Right. Finish off the question and send your final answers. Cross 194.48 plus 60 is 254.48 degrees, and 345.52 plus 60, 405.52 degrees. Final answer, final answer. All right, look at that, guys. Class didn't last too long today. I mean, look at it. Almost how 2 hours went there. Quick, 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 quick. Now we're far from finishing trigonometry. It have much harder questions than these, right? That you're gonna bounce off next week. So, guys, I hope you revise a little bit before next week and come prepared for next week. Next week is the week you're gonna lose your hair. All right. Next week is the time for your hair to turn gray. So, guys, I'm not going to hold you back too much. I know it's late. Have a good Thursday night, and I'll see you all next week.